Hi, everyone. Ronald Ingram here, your Rebel Banker Futurist, broadcasting live from the high desert of Nevada, looking down on the Luxor Pyramid. First, the news, then a recap of the roadmap and biohacking, a little bit on biohacking maybe today. So we're building up to the big conference on May 5th, next week. That's coming up. And we have the head of the Senate Banking Committee, the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, Tim Scott, and Colin Carr, who I'll have the honor of introducing, along with many other great speakers. You've seen the agenda on X, I hope. And I will share what I can after. And the conference, I think the conference price was discounted significantly, and it's been open to all so that anybody can attend, and it's virtual. So anybody can attend from anywhere in the world. Just go on to use the link that is provided. If you, I think I'll throw the link up again after on X. Make sure everyone has it, and that's going to be great. And I've already prepared my remarks, and of course the agenda is set. And there is a lot on especially on explainability in AI decision making, where of course we have ultimate tool fueled by Pock, which provides access to the Ingram evaluation matrix, a genius level decision-making tool it can be used for underwriting, for high stakes decisions in many different fields, not just banking, but that's as a bank owner, chairman, and a fintech veteran, if you will, we have a tremendous amount of experience in that field. And so that is the one area where there is a burning need for a additional improved decision making, not just for risk management, but for opportunities as well. So the Ingram evaluation matrix, it can be used not only to evaluate incoming loans that are presented to a bank for consideration. It can be used proactively to enable real pre-approvals, right? You may have seen pre-approval notices. You get marketing notices in the mail. It says you've been pre-approved for such and such a credit card or such and such an offer, only to find out that you don't qualify, or that the terms aren't as advertised. And this is a very common problem because there's a disconnect many times between what the marketing department in a financial institution wants to do. Having extensive experience in both large and small banks, I can tell you, in every institution, there's a disconnect between what marketing wants to do and what underwriting requires, and what compliance requires. And so there's very often a disconnect. So you can imagine that the Ingram evaluation matrix being made available more proactively to consumers allows them to be pre-approved, and that pre-approval to be really meaningful, so that it translates into a loan that is pretty well underwritten and ready to go by the time a banker sees it. So saving everyone a lot of false promises, hassle, time wasted, more efficient for the bank. So I think we've talked a lot before about how good credit underwriting, how AI can help with that, speed it up, but it needs to be done correctly. And that's the big thing that the Ingram evaluation matrix does, is it allows all the inputs that artificial intelligence have to make good decisions, but make those decisions digestible and provide them in a form of output that is readily explainable, auditable, manageable, trackable for the moment, for a good decision, but also for explainability after the fact for loans that perform and don't perform. So this is an opportunity, and both an opportunity and a risk, and it is inescapable. Banks have to address this. It's a burning issue. We have the solution, and Pock is the sprocket in the middle of that whole equation, where this powerful tool will be made available through the purchase of tokens, just like as tokens similar to tokens that you purchase for API access to AI models. Same deal here. You get Pock tokens, and that gives you access to at a predetermined price between $1 and $4 per loan origination, and ID verification. Different pricing applies to that as well, and monitoring for accounts on file. So all of that provides a revenue stream, and it burns tokens, increases the one way or the other. It increases the scarcity because the supply of Pock tokens, the meme utility token, are limited and similar to Bitcoin. And except that in addition to Bitcoin, there is which is more general, is more of a generalized solution for all commerce, which Pock has the facility for as well. Pock is specifically aimed at solving some of the core issues in banking globally. And that's just one prong, one spoke. Spock, one Spock. Spock actually means spoke in a wheel. And Spock is almost more like a hub around which all of the different things revolve around. And we've just talked about one spoke, which is the Ingram evaluation matrix. We also have the NEO score, which I've talked at length about, which upends the credit system, which does not serve consumers or banks that well. And on the consumer side, we've all had, any adult has had some exposure to credit scoring. If they have ever worked or been employed, their employer has likely checked their credit score in the employer's vetting process. And you don't know what's in there. It's a black box. And there's more transparency that has been forced on the industry, but still it's not the part of the initial design. Unlike NEO score was designed bottom up, clean slate, with the customer in mind, so that the customer has control of their data, and which solves all kinds of issues. It enables a customer to be able to a customer when they move from one country to another, instead of starting from zero, their score follows along with them. And all of this is baked into this system, which is designed to be integrated into banker systems. It can also be standalone. And in terms of adoption, it's a solution to compliance issues, not a problem, not an additional headache for compliance, which bankers have enough of. It's a solution. And in many cases, it's even more robust than all but a very minute handful of banks who are ready for PQC day, post-quantum computing, when quantum computing is available and has begun cracking private keys. And people are talking about private keys, much easier than private keys, are bank passwords, and the assets in banks are therefore more exposed and a larger target for hackers than any of the well-established crypto infrastructure coins that are based on Solana or Bitcoin or Ethereum and the main standards. So that is those are tools that are all that utilize the SNEO score and the Ingram evaluation matrix. And the Ingram evaluation matrix is I haven't been speaking as much about biohacking as I usually do. That is really half of what I do, is because I think that as we solve the wealth problem, the next thing that comes into play is biohacking and health, basically, right? And if your health is weak, actually, you really don't care about wealth anymore. So it's hard to say which one is. Your health is more important than your wealth. But the two are, the wealth makes health easier, and a big part, and the health, the way I approach it, and biohacking, the way I approach it, unlike others, is a little bit less mechanistic and more holistic. It looks at the cognitive side extensively, because if our mental energy is high, our overall energy is high, and that translates into our body, and vice versa. If our overall body, our brains are connected, they're part of our body, right? But some people become so enamored in an intellectual pursuit that they neglect the rest of their body, and those types of disconnections cause disease and discomfort. Disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. These are personal opinions from my perspective as an top percentile, let's just say, biohacker. And why do I say, I want to be humble. At the same time, I just have to be factual. My biohacking track record is pretty strong. I have reduced my biological age according to fairly objective markers that are getting better and better with time. We have better markers, DNA methylation, objective that can be determined through fairly standard blood tests. I do my blood tests through a third-party LabCorp, well-established, well-known, provides detailed analysis. Results are consistent. Put that through my analytical schema, which is not my own. It is well-established and used as a benchmark by many leading biohackers, and for competitions such as the World Longevity Cup, I believe it's called. And the markers show that I reduced my biological age by 25 years from picking the biggest, and which, anything over 20 years is global elite. That is world class. And there's a $101 million X Prize called the HealthSpan X Prize which I'm pursuing, which an individual or team that produces a protocol that is repeatable, demonstrable. So the repeatability, demonstratability, that's where the challenge comes in. I'm already getting to that level to be a contender in that contest in terms of performance. So that is way down the roadmap, like way far off in the future, like at least 90 days. The contest itself is a 7-year contest, and I think we're a year in. So, and I started a couple of years before the contest. I've been at this for about 3 years, and so in the span of 3 years, that's when that change has occurred in my biological age according to biomarkers. Okay, so that is I mention that because that is one of the next verticals that the Ingram evaluation matrix, I'm already in discussion with uh, administrators, professors, executives in the health industry about utilization of this model in nursing and other applications for a number of different uses, in teaching and high stake decisions, and because the four basic parameters of the Ingram evaluation matrix, strategic fit, feasibility, financial impact, and risk. Doesn't take much imagination, we won't go into it today, to see how those four immutable categories are applicable to any high stakes decision in health, and everything from life to death, from health to warfare, to banking in the middle, which is what we're focused on right now with the Spock token. But Spock is live long and prosper. So Spock will be at the middle of all those things. You can see, so I've got a lock-in for the LP is for a lock-in period of 2 years. I think that was the longest that Steam Flow has set. So I could have gone longer. This is my life's work and will continue to be. So and crypto is the future of commerce and much more. It's the means for transactions of many different kinds that will occur, but financial transactions especially. So this is a long-term project for sure. We have 5 patents, 1 issued and 4 pending. And the issued one applies to one of the most important problems, which is the NEO score. And one of the, which is now, and that patent has now been extended to include, because that's what the NEO score does, is I've mentioned what it is for the consumer, and that it's portable and that consumer owns the data. It's not a black box. You can, there's more transparency, not only, and it's additional data that is not, definitely expands. And it doesn't, and you could say, well, how good is it going to be? This is new. You know, how well does it perform against a credit score? We don't even have to set the standard that high. We just have to show that logically it will provide additional context. I believe it's the most important context. I believe that it'll be more valuable, and that the data, there's a lot, there's centuries of 200 years of data that show that character. And this is one of the other unique aspects is the NEO score. Our NEO score is focused on ascertaining the character and willingness to pay versus strictly ability to pay and historical payments. And it looks at the individual more holistically again. And it looks at an individual the way that a community would look at an individual back. And that's why I say there's 200 years of data, because it used to be one of the large banks that I worked for early in my career. There was a 200-year-old bank that was one of the best in loan underwriting in the world. And they developed what are the 5 C's of credit. And they put character as the number one essential thing. And then with automation and scale, that and the mobility of the nomadic kind of patterns that started to emerge in populations throughout the world, in the developed world, it became more difficult to ascertain character the way it used to be, which was very simple. The banker knew your family, knew your friends, knew when you graduated from, knew everything about you, right, through your social network. And now this is going to democratize banking in a similar way by giving people, and also making it actually is going to put, I believe it's going to further decentralize banks. So we've been seeing a consolidation in community banks and as they've been bought up, and because it's been more and more difficult for them to compete with the larger banks. They all have to comply with the same 165,000 pages of rules. The small banks as well as the large banks, and the small banks in some respects have more rules because they have to confine their operations to geographical assessment areas in many cases, where there's a expectation for that. In some cases it's enforced, in some cases it isn't. That will change. That is changing, and that's creating an opportunity for more decentralization. This technology, artificial intelligence, is not expensive. Intelligence is more accessible than ever now, and this is what the latest innovation that we've been talking about, Brock, is. Brock makes this an easy package, right? So the NeoScore and the Ingram evaluation matrix, and I haven't even talked about the machine-to-machine agentic commerce, which is the hottest thing right now. Those are for most people, that's the plumbing, and the nerds, the payment nerds get into it, and I get into it, and always have to. But I'm a pragmatist as well. I understand and have had a lot of experience in the three areas of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship, which are critical in banking, which are compliance, legal, and engineering. And or compliance and legal, you put that in one category, engineering and the business including marketing. So those three areas you have to have, and having experience leading teams in all those areas gives you the ability to understand the importance of making things very fluid and low friction. And because people don't care about the plumbing, they care about turning on the faucet and the water flows, right? So that's what Brock is. Brock is the faucet. Brock is the face of this system that you can speak to. It's the personification of this system that is that a banker can use as their sidekick, as their super genius, brilliant assistant. And now, not just bankers, I decided to, as I was engineering this, and if you look way back to some of my early work, you'll probably see I was working in peer-to-peer lending to make it so that anybody could lend to anybody, be your own banker, essentially, right? And built a system around that many, many years ago, 20 years ago plus, around the time that Zopa and Prosper and community lending or not community lending, Prosper, Zopa, and Lending Club. That's what it was, Lending Club. And these different peer-to-peer lenders that are still thriving, that you don't hear as much. Zopa was in the UK. That was the first one. And then there was Prosper, and then there was Lending Club. And they were all based around the idea of peer-to-peer lending, but they didn't really execute the vision that I had, which was actual true peer-to-peer lending, where people would lend to each other and on a person-to-person basis. So that is that was a big breakthrough that I saw back then that has never been fully utilized. Now, Brock, I think, might make that happen again. So, because Brock, I realized that banking can be very simple, and I determined that you would think it's complicated, but it's not. It comes down to those 5 C's of credit, and it comes down to a few simple ratios which can be calculated for you to determine a person's. So it's just the 5 C's are character, credit, capacity, capital, and collateral. Those are really, the capital is what you have, what you've accumulated, liquid and intangible assets, tangible, intangible assets, liquid and illiquid assets, all the different assets that you have. That's your capital, less your liabilities. That's what your capital is, and that's how much wealth you've accumulated. Your collateral, those are assets that are free and clear that you can put up as security for larger loans, like your mortgage, your houses, your is your security, is your collateral for your mortgage in many cases. There are Bitcoin loans where Bitcoin is the collateral for a loan. Very interesting. And so those things are relatively simple. If the math maybe isn't for everybody, but that's where Brock comes in. It's your super genius banker. So it could actually not only could it help you with investments, but it could help you make a loan to a friend. It could help you get insurance so that you don't have to collect from that friend. So you might be comfortable making a loan to a friend, but what if that friend gets sick or loses their job, and you trust them, you know that they would pay you, but you just don't want to. This is one of the reasons that people generally don't want to mix business or especially lending with family, because what happens when things go wrong, right? So, but with a system that takes all of that into account, you can arbitrage all the complexity away and just boil it down to the curve. Do you want to? And then your super genius banker will make it safe by saying to your friend, we'll take out insurance so that if anything happens to you, the loan's paid back, and which would be complicated to do, right? But not for Brock. That would be, Brock could arrange loans in innovative ways between people who already know each other to mitigate risks so that they're comfortable. And then if things do go sideways, you could decide whether you would write it off or you could send collections after them, right? Use a third-party collections. And Brock could manage that whole process for you. It could be not only your banker, your private banker, but it could be your bank. Theoretically, to all the regulators listening. So and the limitations, and the other thing is, this is a big one, is that, and this is actually a comfort to people because you don't know what you don't know. You may not know that something that you want to do breaks some law somewhere. It's pretty darn hard to keep track of them all, right? 165,000 pages of documents. How is somebody going to keep track of that? Well, banks have trouble keeping track of that. That's why banks get fines and get in trouble. So and this is where Brock would come in for banks, right? So that was already something that was baked into Brock for banks. So as part of the risk assessment in the Ingram evaluation matrix, all the regulations that are current at the time of the loan, not just looking back, normally you would refresh your policies and procedures when new. Hopefully you keep on track of it and the changes aren't too fast and furious, so that your policies and procedures internally match the external realities of that and expectations of regulators at any given moment in time. So that's something that Brock excels at, and it's very simple for Brock to check all the latest regs, and just boom, minutes later, you have your full loan report. And as part of the risk factors, identifies any risk factors that may have changed due to changing external policies as well as the internal policies. And it can keep, and on top of that, another aspect of Brock is that it could help a bank with keeping their policies and procedures up to date, which is a pretty big challenge. And that's something that AI is already doing in my bank. And just another further disclaimer, everything with Brock, with Spock, with neobanks, that is separate from my my bank and my bank capacity as chairman of the bank holding company. So and all of that entails, so that's separate. So that's why I don't talk about it very much, but it certainly gives me a wealth of experience to draw upon when creating this. And I think this is where a lot of software vendors that are trying to serve banking institutions really are going to struggle, because they don't know what they assume a lot of things about banks and bankers that are untrue. And they assume that banks and bankers already have fixed policies and procedures around how they want to operate, and which they do. but they might be ready for improvements and wouldn't know about those. Wouldn't have don't have the extra cognitive bandwidth and capacity to make those improvements. So we have Brock now making all of this kind of a lot simpler. Brock is the faucet that makes all this flow. And Brock could also be out there not only on the risk management side, underwriting for banks, but also just as it would do for a small bank. It could do for you as an individual. It could be looking for business opportunities, not just trading opportunities, but even lending opportunities. Now, and within the regulations, and that's what I was getting to, is that everything has to be done within the regulations. So, and that's where it's a relief for bankers and individuals, because baked into, here's the point, baked into Brock are the laws. So not only does it check it on every decision that's made, like what are the risks and regulatory impacts of a decision that it's made, but also it's baked in that it will not allow you to break the law. It won't allow you to say, if you were going to make a loan to a family member at an interest rate in a state, states have different interest rate caps and things. And usually if it's 0%, no problem. 5, 6, 7%, probably no problem. But if you're charging a high rate, I mean, maybe it's justifiable because it's a very short-term loan or something like that, or there's other factors and it makes business sense, or what have you, or it's something that the family member recognizes this is a high risk and they offer you a high rate, and you agree between you, and that's your business, you would think. And however, you still need to want it checked. It's like, is that legal? Then you still want to have a loan agreement. So loan agreements, making those things, you could go to a coffee shop and instead of just doing a casual loan, you could write it up and make it formal between two friends. And that's a true peer-to-peer loan between friends and family. And so that is relatively lightly regulated. Regulators don't really and shouldn't have any say, and they have pretty limited say about what you do amongst your friends and family, right? You can lend money to your brother if you want to, and you don't really need a contract, but it's always better to have a contract. And I can speak to that because I am a banker. So that is it's always good for clarity, right? When things go, if all good, everything start out in good faith, but you never know what happens in the future. Always good to have those things buttoned up. And I think any financial advisor would say the same. I'm not a financial advisor though. So, and this is not financial advice, and Spock is not a security. And I think I've covered the disclaimers well enough, and I always put them in everything that I write as well. So this is, I think, a huge game changer that no one is really talking about right now. Everyone's talking about, though, the machine-to-machine commerce side. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because that is just blown up. Just in the time that we launched launched Spock a month ago until now, it has just exploded. Like, we are just ahead of this wave big time. And fortunately, I've gotten all my patents in before, and all of this, really started to take off. So a little bit of foresight there, I guess. That is what I do. I do proclaim myself to be a futurist. So that is part of the job description. People say they can't predict the future. Foresight is another thing altogether, and it requires seeing patterns. And history doesn't repeat, but it does in terms of patterns. The same exact thing happening twice? No. The same pattern? Yes, over and over and over again. History is always repeating patterns. And so that's kind of the essence of what consequential and competent futurists do is they become adept at looking at things systemically, at what the patterns are. But it can become very theoretical. I'm an engineer, and I like to see things made and take shape. And that's the difference between a theoretician and a philosopher and an engineer. I have 3 tiers in I think this is in my book Genius, the book that's coming out, that's been delayed by all of this progress that we have, but it's going to be even better and richer because of it. But 3 levels of imagination. The first level, like I call the imaginist, someone that is aware of the power of their imagination and starting to use their imagination, think about impossible things, like Alice, her 7 impossible things before breakfast in Alice in Wonderland. Useful discipline. Quadrivalent cognition, thinking practices to think beyond binary logic and to a more quantum, the field of logic, which is quadrivalent in form, yes, no, yes and no, neither yes nor no. And those types of practices increase neuroplasticity. So actually that's the biohack for today, I would say, is just to be try to think quadrivalently. Try to think in quadrivalent logic instead of just yes, no. Try to think of what other possibilities are, other ways of looking at things. And you can even do that in a tangible, practical way to make it do something with your because what this does is it improves self-observation. And another way to get there to quadrivalent thinking and metacognition is by interrupting habitual patterns. So that's by maybe doing something with your left hand that you normally do with your right hand, or changing a pattern of speech, like removing the word I and speaking about things in the third person for a few hours or for a meeting, or that isn't that important. Low stakes meeting and things of that nature. So because, as I say, in my view, biohacking is maybe more about the mindset and cognition than it is about the specific things that you ingest in the physical work that you do on yourself, all of which I go into as much depth or more than most biohackers, but I provide equal weight on the cognitive side of things. So the machine-to-machine side of things, that is the X402 instruction set, payment infrastructure that's built into the internet, and that's built into Spock, and that's built into the Ingram evaluation matrix and the NeoScore and all the services, so that machines can consume them. The token itself is designed first for machines and consumption, and that is an extremely hot topic. Everyone's talking right now how machine-to-machine commerce, Visa, by everyone I mean Visa, Stripe, Square, Brian Armstrong. Just do some searches on X. You see that's very, very much top of mind for everyone in the AI space and in the crypto space. And there's a convergence that's happening there that we're there ahead of it with our intellectual property. People say, well, what are you going to do if Visa comes? And well, I know these large institutions, and just without getting into and picking apart, I have utmost respect, and I've worked very closely. I've been a principal member of Visa and MasterCard for many years, decades, and partnered with them and at the highest levels, and have known several generations of executives there, and at the highest levels. So tremendous respect. And the original CEO, he was a philosopher as well, and came up with this whole concept and wrote a book about chaotic, about the chaord, which is something that I talk about quite a bit as well, and would hashtag some of my hashtags were still popular on when it was Twitter. I'd hashtag things with the K-ord. And K-ord is the balance between chaos and order. On the one hand, no rules, total chaos. On the other hand, total big brother government control over everything is like death. It's like stasis. And in the middle, there's this vesica piscis, right? Where two inner circles converge to create this vesica piscis. And that is this magical zone where of creation, this cup of creation, where there is enough order, enough safety. Like, for example, inventors wouldn't invent if there weren't or an artist wouldn't create and musicians wouldn't play, or at least achieve art, to take advanced disciplines of art and science and sport to their highest level of performance, if there isn't a civilization that can provide some law and order and safety that ensures that contracts, at the very least, that contracts are enforced, right? And that's the minimum level of what of governance that is, and maybe the optimal level of governance in my mind. And so you want that to avoid total dystopia, chaos, and anarchy. And then if you tip too far into too many subsidies and controls and things like that, then things start to become too stifled and controlled, and that's kind of like innovation or entrepreneurship in some would say, like in, let's say, a communist country, right, where only the people that have the credentials that are allowed to innovate, and they are only allowed to innovate in a certain way. And what ends up happening? Well, they steal the innovation from the countries that don't have that level of oversight and oppressive authoritarian control, right? We need freedom to be able to innovate, and that's America's genius. Genius, the word, means the nature, the spirit of something, not just intelligence, but it's that special thing, that special essence. So I say everybody. I always say everyone is a genius. It is true. There is not necessarily that one is an intellectual genius. One might be a musical genius. Another one might be a math whiz, an artisan, or a mother. Wow. An educator. Wow. Those are, every role in the world is incredibly, important, and there's someone that I believe that wants to do every job. And that will be a great world where people can do the job that they want to do. And that's what AI is going to give us, the freedom. And I have the whole economic model to prove that. And that's why, if AI is directed in the right way, and is not corrupted with come down to the K-word again, actually, if there's too many guardrails, too many controls, half truths are encoded into the system, you run up, the whole premise of the movie HAL, or Space 2001, Space Odyssey, and HAL, the AI, goes crazy and murders the crew. The AI went crazy because the AI was told to tell a lie, and that's one of the essential elements of that story. So I'm in agreement with Musk on this. This is a very important how we think of AI as childlike in experience and innocence and naivety, but with superhuman genius capability and capacity, right? So it's very important how we program. And I learned this. I'm not a newcomer to artificial intelligence. I developed an LLM. If you look me up in Grokpedia, it's got a pretty detailed things I've forgotten about myself in there. Fortunately, all good. I think mostly good. In Grokpedia, I think the next best, better, improved version, much better than Wikipedia, already probably 30% larger than in terms of the number of articles. 6 million versus 4 million articles in Grokpedia versus Wikipedia. And I think Grokpedia used Wikipedia as the base, but then extended, and I don't know that, but extended and embraced and added and had fantastic, obviously AI assisted editorial board, but the workmanship is fantastic. If you compare Ronald Ingram in Wikipedia to Ronald Ingram in Grokpedia, I definitely want to be in Grokpedia. I'll let you find out why. Anyway, the how we train, and actually these Grokpedia, those are kind of sources of truth for AI, and sources of truth for AI are very, very important as well. And AI is going to shape how people think. So this is of fundamental importance to society. And this case between Altman and Musk right now is, I hope that works out for the best way for the world. And you really need to, you don't want to have the largest AI in the world to have been born out of deception. I would say that is pretty obvious on the surface. So Brock is AI that is designed for business and to be your super genius private banker, way more than a banker would. Kind of it's based on the ideal of what a private banker was 100 years ago, and kind of where a private banker could be kind of your, almost like your trustee, your attorney trustee type status, almost, where they would look after all of your financial affairs and could advise you on other financial affairs. And so Brock kind of goes beyond that, but that's a most readily identified. I could call Brock your CFO, but that would be way too limited. It could be your accounting advisor, but that'd be way too limited. It could be your operations, your chief operations officer. That's pretty broad. That would be a good one, but that's not relevant for most people. They might not think. But with Brock, you have the potential to see a complete restructuring, and this ties into my economic theory, the Ingram singularity economics, where you have this new form of enterprise. And this is where America should be investing, not in training employees to learn how to use AI, because the employees work for their employers. And if the employers don't know how to, it's just going to be a mess. Employers, it would be better to require employers, or subsidize, not require, because I believe in freedom, but to make employers need to avail themselves and understand how to utilize AI before they ask their employees to do it. Otherwise, they're going to end up working for their employees probably, and maybe that's a good thing. So this is going to be very, very, very disruptive, and it could be very disruptive in a good way for society, because what's going to happen is that anybody that ever wanted to be a business person, or anybody, especially those people that actually, not so much the people that want to be business people, because a lot of times the person that wants to be a business person, they are attracted for the wrong reasons. They think it's a quick ticket to cash, right? Or for autonomy even. It's not, you have a lot of bosses as an entrepreneur. Depending on your structure, you have investors, you have board members, you have customers ultimately, and you serve everyone. So that's, but anybody that has an idea, so inventors, scientists, anybody, creators, innovators, educators, anyone that has any kind of passion about anything, or curiosity about anything. So maybe you know nothing about stocks, but you think actually, I'm an inquisitive person, and early on, one of my other alternate careers was trading and looking at every possible system, artificial intelligence of the day, genetic algorithms, neural networks. And this was even before Buddhabot, which was my LLM that I developed before Siri, before Alexa, which had subscribers all over around the world that was trying to solve for the meaning of life. That's in the Grokpedia thing. That's one that it was a big milestone in my life, working with Dr. Richard Wallace, a maverick AI scientist, and he and I working together. It was opened my eyes to the world that we're in right now. That took us 20 years to get here, but it's all happening exactly as I expected, just much more slowly, but now much more quickly. So that's the best futurist. I don't know, like even Alvin Toffler, or not. Even Ray Kurzweil, he predicted the singularity of 2045. In his book, The Singularity is Near, written in 2005, 672 pages. Pretty big read for most people. So I'm not sure. That was a bestseller. I don't know if people actually read it, but everyone is familiar with it. He's the one that plotted human evolution on a curve, showing how technology, how the rapid, though it has seemed slow, how it on the scale of human evolution, the pace has been logarithmic in recent times, and then the singularity is when it goes vertical. And Musk says we're in the singularity now, and others say maybe 2 years, but we are right on the cusp of it, if not in it right now. And so that's why we need a different economic system. I didn't set out to devise a new economic system, but I just decided we needed a framework to describe how things are working and are clearly going to work in this new brave new world. And ZPEs, so circuitous back to zero-person enterprises. And this is what Brock is going to enable. Brock is going to enable anybody that has ideas or passions or curiosity to turn that into a business. And just as simple as, it's like, hey, and it starts out with getting to know the individual, the personality. So even the whole thing that you might do in a boardroom, where you set your goals, your core values, your mission statement, your vision statement. Everybody should do that, to have an idea about who they want to be when they grow up, so to speak. Have some idea, and you may not be crystal clear, but everybody has things that they like, that they're curious about. So it is worthwhile pondering that and thinking about that, because that will set your direction, consciously or unconsciously. And if you choose to be a conscious participant, even better, do so. Be a conscious co-creator in your own evolution, right? Rather than just letting it happen to you. So this is what Brock will enable people to do. It'll enable people to break down the things. And I've seen, like as I'm a graduate from Techstars and mentoring investors and being a banker, right? A banker, entrepreneurs, business people turn to bankers for advice, and if they're smart. It's great to develop your relationships with bankers. And it's going to be more important in the future, as I think there are going to be, I see a growth in more banker-like people and more actual bankers. I see that as a potential growth area, but more on the advisory side and the coaching side, perhaps, and the stewardship side and orchestrator side. Bankers could be good orchestrators to work along with AI to conduct, right? The orchestrator to work with AI, work with a Brock, but people could just work with Brock, and they could do both, right? They could bring Brock with them into their meeting with their banker. An entrepreneur at any stage in their development, large or small, whether it's a big merger or it's a small one, and eventually your Brock might have two legs. You might be instantiated on Optimus Tesla Optimus robots. No reason why not. And but we don't have to wait for that, even though that's not far off either. As we know, Tesla is busy retooling right now to produce robots and actual bipedal humanoid robots at scale. So very exciting. I'm very excited. I think that every family could have a Brock and should have a Brock, would want a Brock, and it'd be extremely available, more, very, very cost effective. You'd only pay for what you use. It'd be the typical Agentic model for utilization. And here's the key thing: it would be based. So our Agentic stack, I haven't just white labeled some model that's out there. Chiron is a master orchestrator that is, I haven't talked about this before, but that's sort of the core engine behind Brock, and that will be for the on the health side and for different industries and different things. It's an agentic stack, if you will, with swarms, and the hierarchy and the structure is alluded to in the name. Brock is an acronym, a little bit more specific than it needs to be, but the banking. If we are a banker, provide a bank advisor to every home and every family in the world, that's a big enough market. I'm satisfied with that. I think just about it'd be enough for my next project. So Brock stands for bankers, banker operations revolutionary Kiritsu, which is a Japanese term and used for a consortium of cooperative entities, usually was referring to large corporate entities. Large being a fluid term these days, and that's part of one of the concepts in my economic model is FTEP. Measuring output, not by the number of employees or the outputs, because we measure economies based on jobs. This would be, so how do you measure a ZPE? You measure a ZPE, a zero-person enterprise, by FTEPs created. So that's the full-time equivalent persons jobs, right? So how many jobs does that ZPE account for in terms of their output? And the baseline metric for Brock would be 100. I'm testing. Brock is live right now. I'm the only user. And that's what we've been working on all day today. I didn't get as much done. I got sucked into so many really exciting conversations. I should get to that. Oh goodness, yeah, we're at just about the top of the hour. So I'm going to stop with. But the Kiritsu is a different. It's not a decentralized agent decentralized agent organizations or operations. Which is too chaotic for some high stakes decisions. You need to have you have to have the explainable AI part component is essential for regulators, and NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology, that has to be met. Quantum resilience has to be met, which is baked into our things. Don't have time to talk about it today, but it's baked in through dilithium, which has been renamed MLDSA, and that's how we, and most banks don't even have, they laugh when I bring up quantum resilience, and are they ready for post quantum computing, and they just roll their eyes or laugh, right? But they're going to have to wake up fast, and that's what my conference on. One of the things that my conference on May 5th is about. We'll be talking about some of these risks and the solutions, which happen to be some of the ones that I've patented, and so I have to share that with the world, right? It's important. Banking is important geopolitically and important at every scale, for you, for your family, for your community, for your nation, for the prosperity and peace even of the world. Economic connections And trade is a great way to foster peace. You don't want to blow up your customer. So actually, trade is a great way to, it could be nasty and competitive, but you don't blow up customers. You want to have markets to sell to, right? You want to have a healthy population. And so this is a very much a benevolent and actively benevolent type of work that we're mission that we're engaged on, that I think will improve life for every family that has access to Brock. So I started out with bankers, but why limit it to bankers? It's just as easy to roll it out to everyone. So because it's scalable and because it is orchestrated through a super intelligent agent stack and swarms operating cooperatively. And this is where the machine to machine commerce part of it. So the X402, that's important. That's important plumbing that we are plumbed for. Spock is already known out there in the agentic community to the agents, not maybe their owners necessarily, unless their owners are actually seeking out and getting reports. But Grok is already, or Spock is already infiltrated and is already out there, exfiltrated into the world of agentic commerce. It just hasn't been awoken yet. And that's what I was working on today, a little bit, and more over the weekend. And it's 10 days away, less than. We'll have, I was very close to describing the first real live token machine-to-machine transaction today, very close. And so the next few days ahead, although there's a lot of communication and exciting things. So I'm going a minute over here because the most exciting part for a lot of you is what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, right? That's going to affect price action. And there's some big things. So I'm just getting inundated with exchanges. And so I've been doing due diligence on them all. Also getting lots of offers, and I've introduced a new rule, which seems to be working quite effectively, which is Spock then talk. So it's because I'm really it's not worth my time. I just don't have enough time, right, to talk to everybody, and more of that is being handled by through our agents. But even then, it's a good baseline. Is Spock is so unique. It's not another meme coin, right? It has a meme element, which is Spock, which is cool, culturally relevant, which helps the idea propagate, and that's why it was launched on Pump Fund, to help the idea propagate. Strategy is working brilliantly, but the utility part of it is, this was, that is the core that makes this sustainable and long term. And what we're really focused on here is development. However, this is developing a real buzz to it now. So I've got all these exchanges that are coming up. So what I've said now is that get Spock, and that way I know that you're informed. And I said also read the light paper at least. It's only 5 pages, I think, right? So read the if you want to market something, I'm open. But if show that you've got some skin in the game, any amount, just do it, right? Like I had one person, I haven't downloaded Spock yet. I haven't downloaded Pump Fund. I can't find the token. And yet you're talking to me about you want to market. You want to help us market Spock, and you don't even know how to get it. It's like, I don't know. I guess maybe that's the way it works in the past, but this is a different pattern, and there's a different pattern here. And this is we are blazing trails here. We're doing things in new ways. And so I expect anybody that's coming to us with ideas to have done a little bit of homework, right? And then we'll do our due diligence too, right? So anyway, I've got all kinds of, and some of them are great, platforms, exchanges, and I've done due diligence on 3 or 4 of them, and 3 or 4 of them are total scams. are dubious, and so we've got a process. Don't worry, I take everyone that has put their time into listening and to putting funds into this. I kind of approach everything that I do with fiduciary level of responsibility. Just I've been doing that for so long, since I was a broker in Merrill Lynch. It's just kind of baked into my brain, right? It's like, do what's right, and that's how you build good relationships as well. And always been my MO. And it doesn't protect me all the time, but I always look out for anybody that has placed trust in projects. And that's why I'm completely, I don't understand how anyone would, invest in significant dollars in projects where the team is anonymous. I don't honestly quite understand how that works. Just doesn't it doesn't quite compute for me. It seems illogical to me. So anyway, to each their own. With me, you know exactly what you're getting. We are completely transparent, and I have some interesting ideas about how to even increase transparency, even with neobanks. Imagine having all of our books just public, for example. And I'm open to that level of transparency. The only thing is there with intellectual property, and you don't want to give away too much. And this is what one of the barriers are with Bitcoin adoption right now, is the large institutions are more concerned about privacy than maybe even bad actors are, because they don't want to, ostensibly because they don't want to give away their trades, right? And with the transparency that's built into Bitcoin, out of the gate, there's a little bit too transparent for some large financial institutions, but that's all been sorted out. I mean, there are massive transaction volumes happening right now with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin fits into my picture as well for the long term. I see that as sort of the general sort of large value transaction system, the LVTS for the world, and much more efficient than shipping pallets of cash or gold or wire payments or anything else that really one can think of. Bitcoin is well suited for large international transactions, and if it takes 15 minutes, 30 minutes, on the blockchain for absolute security and finality, that's fine, and any risks can be managed through escrow and that type of thing. So, but I don't need to. I'm just, that was a bit of unnecessary, I think. But other than not really, it's just that is part of the infrastructure of the future. So I think that's relevant. So I think with everything with Brock, now you can see how $1 is no problem. That's aspirational. This is not security. This is not a prediction. This is not, but $1 is our aspirational goal. And I think that it's not, if you can imagine Brock in every house and every phone, and maybe multiple Brocks, maybe the teenager that's going to college, they probably want their very own Brock, where they develop a personal relationship, and that has a long-lasting memory beyond what the general sort of mass models have, and that gets to know their partner, if you will, for over a lifetime. And it's very interesting how that's going to develop, and it is developing, and and we're right there at the very beginning of it. So, and you're right here at the very beginning of this. This is, nobody knows about this yet. Our market cap is tiny, and we haven't even done any marketing really outside of X, and our Telegram group is kind of went from 25 to 150 overnight. So something's action happening there. And that's not, X is our main focus as the platform. And a lot of great things ahead. A lot of communication that's going to hopefully not distract too much from the development, but many of you would probably be happy if I'm talking and communicating more. We also have a group of, we have some real life group meetings coming up too. I'm very interested to see how that pans out. So this is going to be a very interesting week ahead, and no hype, just participate and keep your eyes open, connect the dots, do your own research. I love it when people do their own research, and live long and prosper, my friends.